If you are hearing this message right now, it is not an accident. It is because God Himself is reaching into your life to shake you awake and show you that today is the beginning of a new chapter for your finances, your future, and your faith. So before we go any further, I want you to write in the comments, "I'm ready," if something inside you is already stirring. Because what you are about to hear is not motivation, it is revelation. And revelation is the kind of truth that enters your spirit and never lets you live the same again. Listen closely. The enemy has whispered for years that you need money to start, that you need resources, that you need the perfect moment, that you need everything figured out before you move. But today God is breaking that lie off of you. Because the truth is simple, you do not need money to begin. You do not need capital. You do not need equipment. You do not need connections. You do not need what the world says you should have. You only need what is already in your hands. And maybe you are thinking that you have nothing, that your life is too limited, that your situation is too hard. But let me speak directly to your spirit. What you have is enough for God to multiply. Because God never asks for what you do not have. He asks for what you are willing to move. The miracle of multiplication does not begin when you receive more. It begins when you use the little you already possess. Just like the widow who had only a handful of flour and a little oil. God did not wait for her to have abundance. He waited for her obedience. Because obedience activates heaven in a way that money never will. And this is why this message is titled, "Start with $0, God will do the rest." Because the kingdom of God does not require capital to start. It requires faith. It requires movement. It requires the courage to take what seems small and place it in the hands of a limitless God. And I want you to hear this clearly. You already have something God can use. Your skills, your experiences, your talents, your story, your creativity, your ability to serve, your eye for detail, your way of solving problems, your voice, your phone, your time, your energy. Everything you have is raw material for a miracle. But poverty of the mind has convinced you that you need more, that you must wait, that you are not enough yet. And today God is tearing down that lie. Jesus never asked, "How much is missing?" He asked, "What do you have right now?" So I am asking you the same question. What do you have in your hands that you have ignored? What ability have you dismissed? What experience have you buried? What gift have you underestimated? Because the most dangerous poverty is not the lack of money. It is the lack of vision. And today God is restoring your vision. He is showing you that the small thing you have is already carrying the seed of your breakthrough. But the seed must move to multiply. Faith is movement. So breathe deeply and write in the comments what small thing you are willing to use today. Because that declaration, spoken in faith, may be the very beginning of the financial turnaround you have been praying for. Get ready. Because God is about to multiply what you dare to give Him asterisk. Let me take you deeper now, because what God is revealing to you is not theory. It is a spiritual law that has been operating since ancient times. A law that transformed the life of a widow in Zarephath. A woman who had reached the end of her strength. A woman with only a handful of flour and a little oil. A woman who was preparing what she believed would be her last meal. Yet when the prophet asked her to use the little she had, heaven responded with multiplication that lasted for years. And this is the part most people miss. The miracle did not begin when she had more. The miracle began when she moved with what she already had. And that is exactly what God is trying to show you right now. You have been convinced that you cannot start because you do not have enough. But heaven is saying that the belief, "I need money to begin," is the chain that has kept you in financial darkness. Because God's plan for your life has never depended on the balance in your account. It has depended on your willingness to use the seed He already placed in your hands. And just like that widow, you are standing in front of something that looks small, that looks insignificant, that looks embarrassing to even consider. But what seems small in your eyes is more than enough for God to breathe on it and bring it to life. It could be a skill you learned years ago and forgot about. It could be an ability you used when you were young. It could be something simple like cleaning, cooking, repairing, organizing, or helping others. But when you place that skill in the hands of God and dare to move, the supernatural begins, and I need you to let this sink into your spirit. God never multiplies what you hide. He multiplies what you use. That is why he asked Moses what was in his hand. That is why Jesus asked the disciples how many loaves they had. And that is why he is asking you today. Because what you have right now is the key to breaking the cycle you have been trapped in. You may think it is too little, too weak, too basic, too unimpressive. But God delights in using what seems small to shame the logic of this world. So do not despise what you have. Do not ignore what you know. Do not underestimate the experiences you have lived, everything you have survived, everything you have learned, everything you can do. All of that is raw material for breakthrough. And I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself this question with honesty. If God were to multiply what I already have, what could my life look like? Because the moment you answer that question from a place of faith, something begins to shift in the spiritual realm. Something begins to unlock, something begins to move. And if this is stirring something inside you, I want you to write in the comments, I will use what I have. Because that declaration seals the revelation God is releasing to you in this moment. Asterisk. Now let me open your eyes to something people overlook every single day, because what seems ordinary to you might be the very thing God wants to use to rewrite your financial future. The truth is that you already possess abilities that many people desperately need. And those abilities that you take for granted are the foundation of a business that requires zero money to start. Yes, zero, yet the enemy has convinced you to underestimate them. But today God is tearing down that blindness, because the question is not whether you have a skill. The question is whether you are willing to offer it. Think about this for a moment. Do you know how to clean a home deeply and leave everything shining? Do you know how to organize a space so that chaos becomes order? Do you know how to care for children or accompany the elderly? Do you know how to prepare food that people actually enjoy? Do you know how to fix even the simplest things like a door that will not close, a switch that flickers, a faucet that leaks? Do you realize there are people praying for someone who can do exactly that? And you have convinced yourself that it is nothing. But nothing is exactly what God uses to create something. And what makes this powerful is that excellence turns the simplest service into a testimony. Because when you show up with integrity, with respect, with kindness, when you work as if you were doing it for the Lord and not for people, you honor God with your craft, and heaven honors you with favor, opportunities, and open doors. Colossians 3:23 reminds you of this truth. And when you embrace that mindset, your work stops being ordinary and becomes an act of worship that God multiplies. This is why the market for services like cleaning, organizing, caregiving, repairing, and home assistance keeps expanding. People are overwhelmed, busy, distracted, and they need someone they can trust, someone reliable, someone who brings peace into their home, and that someone could be you. And here is where the supernatural meets the practical. You do not even need to buy supplies or equipment to begin. You can offer your service using what people already have in their own homes. Just like countless individuals who started with nothing. Just like Sophia, whose story you will hear later. People who began using the products of their clients and simply charged for their time, their effort, and their excellence. And I want you to imagine this. Imagine offering your service to one person, then 3, then 10. Imagine working consistently for a few months. Imagine people recommending you because of the quality you deliver. Imagine reaching the point where you have more clients than you can personally handle. That is when you begin to grow. To outsource, to create a team, to multiply your time. And that growth does not come from having money, it comes from having courage. It comes from saying yes to what God placed in your hands. So I want you to breathe deeply and tell me in the comments, I will start today. Because that small declaration could be the spark that ignites the next chapter of your life. Now let me reveal a principle that has lifted countless people out of financial struggle without them ever touching a single product, because this is one of the most overlooked and yet one of the most powerful ways God can multiply what you already have. You do not need capital to earn money. You do not need inventory. You do not need stock. All you need is the ability to connect two people who need each other. This is called intermediation, and it is a spiritual principle disguised as a business strategy, because the kingdom of God has always rewarded those who bring value, who create bridges, who serve as a channel of blessing. And I want you to think about this. Do you know someone who sells something? Fruits, supplies, tools, ingredients. Do you know someone who needs those things? Restaurants, stores, families. The moment you introduce one to the other, you create value that did not exist before. And when you create value, you can receive a portion, a commission, a blessing. And here is the beauty of it. You never bought anything. You never stored anything. You never risked anything. You simply used your awareness, your relationships, your observation, your willingness to connect people. And this works for products, services, and opportunities. You may know a great electrician, a great plumber, a great cleaner, a great tutor, and you may also know someone who needs exactly that help. By connecting them, you become a bridge, and the moment you become a bridge, God begins to pour abundance through you. Because Proverbs 11:25 says that those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Which means this: when you help someone reach a solution, God helps you reach your own breakthrough. And this is not complicated. Javier in Mexico understood this. A security guard with a small salary. A man who barely made enough to survive, but he noticed a need. He saw his neighbors struggling to get gas delivered to their homes. He spoke to a supplier and proposed receiving a simple commission for every new customer he brought. He then created a WhatsApp group, began connecting people, coordinating deliveries. And in 6 months, he was earning more from commissions than from his job. He never invested a cent. He never touched a single tank. He simply became a channel. And that is exactly what God can do through you. If you stop saying you have nothing and begin recognizing the opportunities around you. So ask yourself right now, what need do I see around me? What problem is waiting for someone to bridge the gap? What products or services do people in my community lack? And if this is stirring something inside you, then I want you to write in the comments, I am a bridge. Because that simple declaration positions your heart to receive the creativity, clarity, and courage that God is releasing over you right now. Asterisk. Let's go even deeper now, because what I am about to reveal to you is the kind of truth that separates dreamers from builders and believers from movers. This is the moment where your mindset begins to shift from waiting to acting and from surviving to building. Because God is now placing the spotlight on the power of your voice, your experience, your testimony, and your ability to help others through what you have already lived, learned, and overcome. You do not need a perfect life to create value. You only need authenticity, and this is where the third path begins. The path of turning your knowledge and your story into content that brings light, clarity, and even income. And I need you to truly grasp this, because millions of people right now are searching for answers, searching for guidance, searching for someone who knows how to do something they do not know yet. And you may think your story is simple. Your skills are ordinary, your experiences are common. But what feels normal to you is revelation to someone else. If you know how to cook affordable meals that feed a family, if you know how to create a weekly budget, if you know how to stretch money during difficult seasons, if you overcame depression, heartbreak, sickness, addiction, debt, fear, or loneliness, then you carry keys that thousands of people are praying for right now. And God does not ask you to be a professional speaker or an expert teacher. He simply asks you to share what He has walked you through. Because when you share your process, you become a light on a hill, fulfilling Matthew 5, where Jesus says you are the light of the world. And that light is not meant to be hidden, it is meant to shine for others to see. And here is the divine mystery hidden inside this. When you release what God placed inside of you, He releases what you have been waiting for. When you bless others with your knowledge, He blesses you with opportunities. When you pour into others, heaven pours into you. And creating content today requires nothing more than your phone, your selflessness, and your desire to help someone who is hurting. Imagine sharing daily tips on managing money. Imagine teaching the recipes that helped your family when times were hard. Imagine sharing encouragement from Scripture for people who feel lost. Imagine recording simple tutorials for things you had to learn the hard way. Each video becomes a seed. Each piece of content becomes a door. Each act of sharing becomes a way for God to multiply your impact and your provision. Sophia, the woman you will soon hear about, began exactly like this. With no money, no equipment, no perfect plan. She simply used her phone and her willingness to help others. And God breathed on her obedience and turned it into influence and income. So now breathe deeply and tell me in the comments, I have something to share. Because that confession is the first step to unlocking everything God placed inside of you. Asterisk. And now we arrive at the truth that confronts every excuse you have ever held onto, because this is the moment where God exposes the real barrier that has kept you from stepping into the life He designed for you. The barrier is not money. It is not time. It is not opportunity. It is not connections. The barrier is inaction disguised as wisdom and fear disguised as logic. And the enemy has used that disguise to convince countless people to delay their breakthrough for years. But today God is tearing the mask off of that lie. Because James 2:17 says that faith without action is dead. Not weak, not slow, not limited, but dead. Which means that the dream you do not act on becomes a dream that never breathes, never grows, never multiplies. And I need you to feel the weight of this in your spirit. Because the perfect moment you are waiting for does not exist. The perfect financial situation you imagine will not magically appear. The courage you think you will feel one day will not suddenly fall from the sky. It is movement that produces courage, not the other way around. It is obedience that produces strength. It is action that produces favor. And the people who see their lives transformed are not always the most educated, the most talented, or the most experienced. They are simply the ones who move while others hesitate. The ones who take the first step trembling but determined. The ones who say, God, if you are with me, I will not stay where I am. And I need you to understand something that heaven is whispering to you right now. 30 minutes are enough to change the direction of your life. 30 minutes are enough to break the cycle you have been trapped in. 30 minutes are enough to activate a chain reaction in the spiritual realm. In the same amount of time you spend scrolling without purpose, complaining about your situation, or worrying about what you cannot control, you could create a simple profile offering your service. You could record your first video with your phone. You could message 10 people and let them know you are available. You could ask a local business if they need help. You could connect 2 people and earn a commission. You could organize a small plan of action and execute it immediately. And God is saying to you right now that when you move first, He moves next. When you take a step, He clears the path. When you push forward, He opens the doors that no man can shut. And I want you to hear this in your spirit. Your breakthrough is not waiting on resources, it is waiting on courage. Courage to move without seeing the entire staircase. Courage to trust God while your knees shake. Courage to obey even when nothing makes sense yet. And if you feel something rising inside you right now, I want you to type in the comments, "I will move today." Because that declaration marks the moment where your faith begins to breathe again and where God begins to align everything you have been praying for. Asterisk. Now we step into a story that carries the weight of real-life pain and real-life breakthrough. Because sometimes the best way for God to speak to your heart is to show you what He has already done in the life of someone who started at the bottom just like you. And this is the story of Sophia, a woman who discovered the supernatural power hidden inside the little she had. Sophia was 29 years old, living in a small apartment in the south of Santiago de Chile with her 2 young children, just 5 and 7. And every day she woke up feeling the weight of a future that looked darker and smaller with each passing month. Her husband had abandoned the home, leaving her with emotional wounds, unpaid bills, mounting responsibilities, and a heart full of fear. Before that, she had worked in a small clothing store, earning just enough to survive. But when the store closed during the economic collapse of the pandemic, she was left without income, without savings, and without anyone to help her. She sent out resumes, knocked on doors, asked for interviews. But no one wanted to hire a single mother who had no one to watch her children. Each rejection chipped away at her confidence. And as her last few pesos began to disappear, she reached a breaking point. One evening, she sat on the floor of her tiny apartment surrounded by silence. The children asleep, the refrigerator almost empty. The bills piled on the table like silent reminders of her failure. And she cried until her body had no tears left. Finally, she whispered a desperate prayer, "God, I have nothing, but if you show me what to do, I will do it." And that prayer became the spark that heaven had been waiting for. 2 days later, a neighbor knocked on her door, asking for help cleaning her house, because she had been working double shifts and everything was falling apart. Sophia had no cleaning supplies of her own, but instead of saying no, she swallowed her pride and asked if she could use whatever products the neighbor had. The woman agreed, and that small act of humility opened the first door. Sophia cleaned with all the strength and excellence she had left, scrubbing floors, organizing rooms, putting love into every detail. When she finished, the house looked transformed, and the neighbor could not believe her eyes. She immediately told 2 friends about Sophia, and within 7 days, Sophia had 3 consistent clients. For the first time in months, she felt a tiny flame of hope flickering inside her chest. She kept working, and within 2 months, she had 10 clients. She made more money cleaning houses than she ever made at the clothing store. Yet the story did not stop there, because God was not finished multiplying. With a little extra money, she bought basic ingredients and began making homemade desserts on weekends, posting simple pictures and short descriptions in a neighborhood WhatsApp group. Some weeks she sold nothing, some weeks she sold a few orders. But she never stopped posting, never stopped sending messages, never stopped moving. One Saturday, while making a cake, she thought maybe someone else needs to see how I do this, and she recorded a short video with her phone. No editing, no fancy equipment, just a tired mother doing her best. The video received 700 views, then 3,000 on another one, and then a miracle happened. She posted a video about cooking nutritious food for her children with just 10,000 pesos a week, and within 4 days, it went viral with more than 500,000 views. Suddenly, companies reached out to her asking to collaborate, offering sponsorships for kitchen products and food brands. She could not believe what was happening, but she kept moving, kept posting, kept working, kept obeying that whisper from God that said, "Keep going, I am multiplying." Within 3 years, Sophia was coordinating a team of 6 women offering deep cleaning services across her city. She had more than 200,000 followers on social media. She was earning around $3,500 a month between cleaning, baking, and content creation, and none of it required a diploma. None of it required money to start. None of it required luck or connections. It required one thing: using the little she already had. And this is the revelation God wants you to receive through her story. Sophia did not rise because she was lucky. She rose because she moved, because she acted, because she refused to sit still in the pain of her circumstances. She used borrowed cleaning supplies. She used her old phone. She used her willingness to help others, and God used her obedience to build something bigger than she ever imagined. And now He is speaking that same truth to you, that your little is enough for Him to multiply, that your beginning does not need to be glamorous, that your first step does not need to be perfect, that your story is not over just because you feel empty. And if this story moves something inside your heart, I want you to write in the comments today, "I begin," because those 3 words might be the line heaven uses to start rewriting the next chapter of your life. Asterisk. And now as we come to the final part of this message, I need you to slow down your breathing and really open your heart, because this is the moment where everything you have heard is no longer just information, but an invitation from God Himself, an invitation to rise, to move, to believe again, to confront the fears that have been controlling you, to silence the voice that keeps telling you you are not enough. Because if God has brought you this far into this message, it is because heaven is trying to shake something awake inside of you right now. This is not about motivation. This is not about hype. This is not about a temporary feeling. This is about a divine appointment where God looks at you and says, "I can work with what you have if you are willing to give it to me." And I want you to hear this like it is being spoken directly into your soul. Your life will not change because you wait. It will change because you move. It will change because you dare to plant a seed of obedience, even when you cannot see the harvest yet. It will change because you stop saying someday and you start saying today. The truth is that many people never step into the life God prepared for them, not because they were not capable, not because they were not chosen, but because they waited for a perfect moment that never came. They waited for money. They waited for clarity. They waited for confidence. They waited for approval. And life kept passing them by. But God is telling you right now that this waiting season is over. The heaviness you have carried is not your identity. The years where you felt stuck are not wasted. Every tear, every failure, every loss, every sleepless night, every door that closed, every person who walked away, all of it has prepared the ground for what God is planting in you today. And what He plants, He multiplies. What He touches, He transforms. What He begins, He finishes. So hear this. Your small beginning is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of potential. It is the same pattern God used with the widow, with Moses, with David, with Gideon, with the disciples. He always starts with little so that no one will ever be able to say the breakthrough came from human strength. And now He is starting with your little, with what you already have in your hands, with the skills, the experiences, the stories, the abilities, the memories, the scars, the lessons, the pain, the desire, the hunger for something better. And God is saying, "Bring it to me, because I will do what you cannot do. I will breathe on what you thought was useless. I will shine through what you thought was broken. I will multiply what you thought was small." But you must move first. You must take the step. Even a trembling step counts in heaven, because faith is not measured by how confident you feel. Faith is measured by how willing you are to move even when you feel afraid. And I need you to understand something deeply. Your breakthrough is not going to come in a dramatic explosion of miracles. Many times it begins quietly, subtly, gently, like a whisper turning into a wind, like a spark turning into a flame, like a small action turning into a major shift. And that is what God is doing with you right now. He's awakening something small but powerful, something fragile but holy, something simple but divine. And He is telling you that the next 24 hours are not just another day. They are an opportunity to sow a seed of movement, to post that offer, to call that person, to send that message, to record that video, to offer that help, to take that first step that seems small to you but echoes loudly in the spiritual realm. Because when you move, heaven moves with you. Angels move with you. Favor moves with you. Opportunities move with you. And if you doubt that God can confirm what you are feeling, He will show you signs in the days ahead. A conversation that gives you clarity. A message that arrives unexpectedly. An opportunity that aligns perfectly. Because the God who multiplies is not silent. He responds to faith, and today He is responding to yours. So before this message ends, I want you to write in the comments the declaration that seals everything we have spoken. Type these two powerful words, "I begin," because those words are a prophetic act, a spiritual contract, a step into a new season. And when you declare them, you are telling heaven, I am ready to use what I have. I am ready to move in faith. I am ready to trust God with my small beginning. And I believe with all my heart that as you write those words, chains will break. Clarity will rise, peace will enter you, and the first steps of your breakthrough will begin. And as you go forward from this moment, remember this truth that will follow you everywhere. You do not need what you lost. You do not need what people withheld from you. You do not need what you think is missing. You only need what God placed in your hands. Because when you start with zero, He starts with power. When you start with fear, He starts with strength. When you start with a whisper, He starts with a wind. And when you give Him your little, He gives you more than enough. May God bless your hands, your mind, your ideas, your steps, your home, your family, your finances. And may you look back 30 days from now and say this was the moment where everything changed. So go, begin, trust, move, and watch what God will do with the seed you are willing to plant today.